Hey guys, this is Dimi with 15-Minute Sales Boosters, a channel dedicated to bringing actionable insights to sales professionals in a bite-sized format. In this video, I'm going to talk about an ideal customer profile, also known as ICP, and strategies to develop and leverage an ICP to help you hit and exceed quota. If you're an individual contributor or a sales manager, ICP comes into play during the following stages of the sales process. Number one, ICP will help you identify what are the best accounts to go after and what is the lowest hanging fruit. ICP will also help you build prospecting lists by giving you the exact parameters to input into your sales intelligence search wizard. Ideal customer profile is the baseline for developing your sales story and its most critical element, the value statement. Finally, strongly defining business challenges your organization has helped existing customers solve during the ICP formulation stage will drive effective discovery questions to help you uncover business needs and develop them into explicit business requirements that close sales. In today's video, we will talk specifically about how to leverage an ICP to select the best target accounts and build prospecting lists, and how ICP ties into that. A big mistake salespeople make when selecting target accounts and building prospecting lists is relying on anecdotal evidence and gut feels instead of actual data. I also see many salespeople, especially when starting with new organizations, looking for a magic untapped industry, a diamond in the rough that will not only help them win, but also help them do so in the most creative way. Unfortunately, this approach is similar to trying to hit a bullseye by throwing a dart at a dartboard blindfolded. Can you hit it? Yeah, surely it's possible. However, your chances of doing so are always going to be lower compared to if you have been observing and practicing throws made by the world's best dart players with your eyes wide open. And this is exactly how I recommend approaching your account selection and list building by leveraging ICP. Remember that there are no bonus points awarded for hitting your quota the hard way, which is the number one thing that matters in sales. So what is my approach to developing and leveraging an ideal customer profile that delivers real sales results in the shortest amount of time possible? So the answer is I always want to leverage as much of the historical data available to me as possible when selecting accounts and building lists. What I'm looking for is common characteristics of the accounts and deals that have been won as well as lost in the past by my organization in order to select accounts similar to the ones that have been won in the past and avoid the accounts that are similar to the ones that have been lost in the past. Specifically, what am I looking to analyze? So number one, what is the average annual revenue or headcount of the accounts won versus accounts lost? Is there revenue band going outside of which leads to lower win rates and or smaller deal sizes? What is ideal? Important side note, going after smaller deal sizes that close quicker can totally be part of your strategy. And if you're a type of salesperson who's better at closing large volume of smaller deals, then leverage your strengths. It doesn't matter how you get to quota. However, getting to quota is what matters. Speaking about revenue band or headcount, it is important to keep in mind that for certain products and services, such as, for example, HR and payroll software, headcount will matter a lot more than the actual revenue. Number two, what are the most common industries shared by the closed won deals? I'm a big fan of leveraging the North American Industry Classification System, also known as NAICS, to get as specific as possible when selecting target accounts. Please find the link to NAICS website in the video notes. The beauty of NAICS codes is that they allow you to be way more specific with industry identification. For example, you might be tempted to go after construction as a whole industry. However, perhaps only commercial construction is the industry all of your organization's closed won deals fall under, while there are no or very few residential or civil construction industry accounts. The more specific you can identify the common characteristics of your organization's closed won accounts, the better conversion rates you will see throughout the sales process. If you have access to sales intelligence tools like ZoomInfo, plug in the name of one of the closed won opportunities and navigate to the industry code section. Next, simply copy and paste your NAICS code into the new search under the industry section of the search wizard. And just like that, you have just created a list of companies whose industry is as close to your closed won account as possible. Characteristic number three that I'm looking for, location, which could be cities, metropolitan areas, states, or provinces if you're in Canada, like yours truly. It's important to keep in mind that both the actual geographical location as well as their common characteristics can be important. For example, your organization might be successful in a certain state because of a recent regulation that just came out for the state, and your product and service solves that compliance challenge associated with that specific regulation. In this case, it wouldn't make much sense to go to take similar messaging to, for example, a neighboring state with similar characteristics, but which is not being affected by the regulation. On the flip side, let's imagine that you sell built-in parking solutions, and your organization has successfully penetrated the market in Toronto and captured 80% of all possible customers. Let's say the other 20% either are using a competitor or are just not able to take advantage of the technology for some other reason. In this case, going after a city with similar characteristics, like let's say New York, might make sense. We will talk about using references when prospecting. However, skipping ahead, you will also realize the benefits of the two cities being geographically close to each other, which in the eyes of a customer increases trust. That said, always be wary of specific regulations and organizational and cultural differences as you cross not only international borders, like in my example, but also state or provincial borders. Especially in the US, two neighboring states can sometimes fail to be any more different in how you would approach doing business with them. Number 4, stakeholders engaged in the purchase, including their titles, tenure with the company, and the overall decision-making process. This type of analysis is critical when identifying who to reach out to in the first place or insist on getting involved in the evaluation process during a demo or, say, a proposal stage on the customer's end, as well as the typical steps on the road to the sale. So, for example, was your sales team working with an operations manager who was able to sign off on the dotted line and who just needed a go-ahead from a CFO or CEO who never really showed their face during the evaluation process? Or did they have to walk a C-level executive through a detailed ROI calculation and analysis before getting their approval to move forward? Was the ROI analysis presented by your champion, or was it done together with your champion and your sales team? This information is critical when determining what is the best path towards your next sale and what typically works and what doesn't. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, what are the key business challenges those organizations were facing and how your company was able to address them? While you can always find a lot of unique challenges, focus on the ones that come up often. Usually it's anywhere between 3 and 5 for most organizations. Those are the challenges you want to bring up first and foremost in your discovery and prospecting calls. At the end of the day, if a prospective client you are speaking with doesn't even have 1 out of 5 most common and or impactful challenges your organization solves, there is no way at all for you to generate value for them by solving a business challenge. And if there's no business challenge to solve, there's just no sale. Your product or service ultimately makes sense to your client only if it solves a problem. So number one thing we as salespeople should look for is a problem to solve, because again, without a problem, there's nothing to fix and no reason to buy a product. Once you have identified these or any other common characteristics and listed them out, you are now ready to build an effective prospecting list. Simply plug in the parameters into your sales intelligence software like ZoomInfo and get cracking. The interesting thing about going about ICP using this approach is what is especially valuable as you start with a new product or organization is you don't necessarily need to understand the why behind these wins and losses. While going through the exercise will naturally give you some insights into that, it will most importantly give you the hard facts about what works and what doesn't. I should, however, note that by no means I suggest boxing yourself in and not experimenting and going after new industries, use cases, or territories. However, I'm a big proponent of not putting all eggs in one basket and establishing a strong sales and prospecting base based on what is replicable and what has worked in the past before branching out to other potential avenues. Once you're comfortable with executing what has worked for others and the company, you can start exploring uncharted territories, having the knowledge and experience you would have gained from working the existing ICP based on historical data. Once you're comfortable winning business based on the historical ICP data, consider a phased approach when it comes to introducing new strategies and ideas. Perhaps at first you want to do a 90-10 or an 80-20 split between an already working strategy and a new one. So for example, if you're making 60 new prospecting calls a day, consider making 48 calls to your primary ICP list and 12 to the secondary list. From there, keep tracking and analyzing if your new list conversion rates are on par or better than your primary list. Consider not only your calls to meeting ratios, but how many of those meetings actually become qualified opportunities? What is the sales revenue they're generating? And how long is the sales cycle? If the metrics make sense, go ahead and increase the percentage of prospecting touches you're making to your secondary list. Added bonus of this approach is that you will also become an expert in this new field and be the first in line to perhaps establish a whole new division at your organization. Just like with building a house though, you always need to start with a strong foundation, and historical database ICP is exactly that. So go ahead and block up time in your calendar and dig into that closed-won report and start digging for your ICP characteristics. If you like to continue receiving these short, actionable tips and insights into ways to improve your sales game, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, and consider leaving a comment and/or question. See you in the next episode.